DreAllDay.com.
Dre Baldwin, DreAllDay.com. Today I want to talk about structuring positive thinking into your life. Now, those of you who know, if you know anything about my work, you know that the foundation of what we do here at Work on Your Game is based around mindset, because I am a firm believer, principle-wise. This is not a theory, but a principle of mine, that mindset is the foundation of all of our outcomes. Any kind of outcome, whether it's an outcome that you want or is an outcome that you don't want, the way that we are thinking is the main reason that that outcome exists and the reason that outcome occurs. Whether, again, good things, bad things, success, failure, anything in between, it starts with the way that we think, and it changes based on the way that we think. Therefore, you hear people talking about thinking positively, because the theory goes, well, if you think positive, then positive things will happen, and then you'll have positive outcomes in your life. And while I'm thinking about this, I remember Eminem, the rapper. He had a song, I think it was on his first album. I think it was his first album. Might have been on not even on the album, I don't remember. He had a song called "If I Had $1 Million," and at the end of the song, he's saying, people always tell me to think positive, but why would I think positive when I don't see anything positive? And that was a good question. And it's a legitimate question. And I'm bringing that up to say this. Positive thinking is a good thing. There is a process of thinking positively, and there is a discipline and a habit of thinking positively that I believe can help you in life. However, just thinking positively when you have no real reasons to think positively can become, number one, a very frustrating experience, because you're telling yourself to think positive, as Eminem said, when there's nothing positive happening in your life. So there's a conflict there, and what sense does this make? There's no reasonable support for the positive thinking if there's nothing positive going on in your life and you don't see anything positive coming in your future. That doesn't mean that there isn't anything, but if you don't see it, then it's hard to think it, right? And then number two, if you keep telling yourself to think positive, but you're not getting positive outcomes, then again, you might be fooling yourself. Like, okay, I'm just going to keep thinking positive, nothing's happening. So I was listening to, I've taken a lot of training. I read a lot, take a lot of courses and things like that. So I'm taking this it's like a wealth creation, wealth attraction course from this guy named Dan Kennedy, who's an old marketing guy. He's not active right now. I mean, his stuff is still out there because he packaged it up and he sold the company and things like that. But I'm taking one of his wealth attraction courses that he recorded. This probably is like 20 years old. And one of the things that he talks about is that when he first started in his business, because he was a professional speaker, then he got into marketing and consulting and copywriting and things like that. And when he first started his business, he used to listen to the success tapes and the positive thinking tapes and all that stuff back when they were actually tapes. And he said, well, I had this beat up car. I wasn't really making any money. I was not very successful by my own measure, but I'm listening to these positive thinking tapes and it wasn't really changing my situation. He said, my situation started changing when I started doing things, taking actions that actually put me in a position to be successful. And when I was actually successful, then it was much easier to think positive. And that's the point that I want to give you here. And again, the point of this video is about structuring positive thinking in your life. So how do you structure positive thinking? Because positive thinking works the same way that discipline works, in that if you want to be more disciplined in your life, the key is not just make yourself be more disciplined or force feed discipline on yourself, or say, hey, how bad do you want to be disciplined? I mean, people say things like that, and technically it can work, but it usually doesn't work in the long term, simply because force feeding yourself to be any type of way when you don't have a solid reason to be it isn't a long-term strategy for success in any aspect of life. So if you want to be a more positive thinker in your life, the number one thing you need to do is you need to structure positive outcomes into your life such that you have a reason to think positively about what's happening. It's a good idea, right? So if you're an athlete, for example, and I'll give you a couple examples here, but if you're an athlete, for example, and you want to think more positively about your ability to play your sport, basketball, tennis, football, the best thing you can do to think positively about your ability in that sport is to get yourself a trainer, get on a team, practice more with players who are better than you, and do things that you know are structuring a tangible, noticeable improvement in your performance. So then it makes more sense for you to think positively about the way that you play. You have a real reason now to think positive rather than just telling yourself to think positive just because. If you're in sales, for example, and we're all in sales on some level, but if you're in sales and you actually call yourself a salesperson, best way for you to think positive is not just to tell yourself that or listen to motivational tapes every day or whatever material is supposed to get you excited or revved up for the day. Instead, make sure that you have a book of prospects that you can continually call on so that you have a reason to think positive about the day in front of you, because you know, if I go talk to all these prospects and I know I have a 40% closing rate and I got 10 calls on the calendar, I can positively expect 4 sales. All right, that gives you a real reason to be positive. So when it comes to positive thinking, the most important thing you can do is structure in things that give you a solid, tangible, measurable, practical reason to think positively. So if you're the type of person who you're not into all the head trip mindset woo stuff that some of you may call it that, I tend to be into that stuff a little bit more than the average person. But at the same time, I am also a very extremely logical thinker. I believe that I tend to be a rational thinker. So I understand both sides of this. I understand just the mindset side, kind of the spiritual energy, intangible side of it, that if you put positive energy out there, you get positive energy back, even if you don't have anything going on right now. And I believe that there is a way that you can manifest positive things into your life, even when you have nothing going on. I believe in that. At the same time, it's much easier to manifest a positive outcome in life when you have a real reason for the positive outcome happening, right? Rather than it just happening randomly, you can actually set yourself up, position yourself to be successful because you already have the pieces in place. And this is all about basically game planning, or in the work on your game world, my coaching program, we call Work on Your Game University. We call this doing your homework. And doing your homework, folks, just means doing the work ahead of time that positions you to be successful when the actual situation occurs. So all of you went to school on some level. The more you did your homework, the better you were prepared for the exam, right? Or for the test, right? That's what doing your homework means. So you did your homework every day. Then when the test came, you actually knew the material that was on the test. So the questions that were going to be asked of you, it was much easier for you to answer the questions because you had done your homework. You actually knew the content. You weren't guessing when the test came around. Same thing when you play a sport. If you practice every day, then when the game comes, you actually know what you're doing. You don't have to think so hard. You're not stumped by the challenge of the opponent in front of you, and you have a better chance of winning the game. If you're in sales, if you're a professional speaker, the more you prepare your presentation before it happens, the easier it is to give the presentation because you know exactly what you're doing. So doing your homework, this is a form of doing your homework, preparing yourself ahead of time for the situation that's about to be in front of you. So it's much easier for you to get the job done the way you expect the job to get done. So this is all part of the preparatory work that you can do to set yourself up to win. So with all that said, folks, if you have not yet joined Work on Your Game University, that's the place where I do all my coaching. That's where we work with people on this framework based around mindset, strategy, systems, and accountability, but it's not based on any particular industry or any particular type of person. As a matter of fact, we work with people in brick and mortar businesses. We have people who are transitioning from full-time careers to entrepreneurship, people who are already full-time entrepreneurs who are doing maybe similar things like thought leadership, coaching, writing books, speaking. We have those people. We have people, again, with brick and mortar businesses. They barely have a presence on the internet. We work with a lot of different people simply because my number one superpower is insight. And insight is the ability to look at a situation and see what's really happening and be able to break it down and explain it in simple terms, different than how see what's really happening as opposed to what most people think is happening, what we see on the surface. That's my number one superpower, which is why I can work with so many people in so many different industries, because that ability is not limited to one industry. It's not limited to any specific type of person, place, or job or career. So anyway, that's what happens in Work on Your Game University. You can learn more about the university by going to the link that's down in the description, or just looking up workonyourgameuniversity.com. And that's that, folks. Work on your game. Dre, all